This is super exciting. So we're just going to get started. Thank you so much for joining us on this webinar today. We're so excited to see all of you, so many names, so many faces, and can't wait to talk about SEO in the age of AI today. A little bit of housekeeping for those of you that just joined. We'll make sure that we'll be sending a recording to all registrants. So don't worry, if you come in a little bit late, you'll get it. And as we chat, please feel free to leave your questions for us using the Q&A button below. We'll try to get to some of it during our conversation, but we'll leave time towards the tail end. All right, very, very cool. Super excited and can't wait to talk about it. So today we're talking about SEO in the age of AI, looking at some really, really transformative changes in SEO driven by advancements in AI and Google's evolving response to the rapidly expanding digital content landscape and search patterns. I know a lot of changes happened yesterday, or a lot of announcements with Google Marketing Live, so hopefully we'll get a chance to touch on that. But largely AI tools, I think that's been the big topic of conversation for all of us for well over a year, not just on the SEO side, but on the digital media side as well. But AI tools can enhance efficiency. They can help with personalization. They allow businesses to create tailored content at scale in a way that's just more efficient, or in areas where it used to be very time intensive to do. It's also helped people better understand their world. It's given us a lot of personalized answers to the questions that we're looking to understand every day. And I think that's also going to be a pretty big topic of conversation today. But with all of the helpful things that AI has helped us to do, AI created content can be really challenging to do well. Something we'll talk about it quite a bit today as well. So low quality AI generated content just has really negatively influenced search results. Though I've seen some complaints here and there, and also user experience. And Google's introduction of AI overviews for search queries has often enough resulted in misleading answers to important questions. And I know the speaker today has quite a lot of thoughts on that too. So over the past year, Google has implemented a lot of updates with the goal of improving search quality. For some businesses, these updates have had unintended consequences, completely upending business models. So today we're going to talk about these developments in quite a bit of depth and discuss how SEO practices must adapt to stay ahead in this new landscape. So let's do some introductions. Hi, my name is Ina Zeyger, and I'm the VP of Digital Media here at Amsive. Please don't leave. You are in the right place. We are going to be talking about SEO. You must be wondering why a media person is on an SEO conversation. But really, a lot of the work we do is so intertwined, and often enough, the collaboration leads to much stronger and better results. So before I introduce my guest, lilyray, she is a colleague, a friend, and a pioneering SEO. She heads up our SEO team as the VP of SEO and strategy and research. And Lily spends a lot of time analyzing how Google and other search engines evaluate and rank content. And she works with our clients to help future-proof their SEO strategies. So we're really excited to have her. Lily, welcome. For those of you who don't know Lily, I'd love for you to introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you. Super happy to be here, and happy to be here with you as well, Ina. Love working together and love doing these types of projects together as well. So yeah, my name's Lily. I oversee our SEO team with a handful of other directors. We're about 35 people now. We assist clients in lots of different categories, and with all things SEO. My role personally and specifically in the last couple of years has really focused a lot on research, just looking into what Google and the other search engines are doing day in and day out. They've certainly kept us on our toes for the last couple of weeks and months, so things have been quite busy, but just trying to keep a handle on what's happening, what's changing, and certainly focused on AI. So happy to talk about everything today.
Yes, we're going to dig deep on those. I know a lot of you get to hear this conversation. So today we're going to be talking about SEO in the age of AI, and we're going to be covering a bunch of different things. But what I'd love to really talk to you about, Lily, is just the recent changes in search results and what these changes have looked like. I think it's a big concern for many, how marketers can respond to these changes now and what this actually means for SEO in the future, which is always a big question. And I know you have a lot of thoughts on that too. So let's start with the very, very first one. What's going on with search results in the last year? Like, what sort of changes are you seeing?
Absolutely. Let me know. Can you see my screen okay?
Yes, perfect.
Great. Yeah, so I want to focus on some of the bigger changes that have happened in Google search results over the last, let's say, 8 or 9 months or so. Now, there's been a lot, but the ones that I want to focus on because I think they've had the biggest impact have been the September helpful content update, which rolled out last year in September. We have the March core update, which was about a 45-day core algorithm update that concluded last month in April. We also have the March spam update, which was launched at the same time as the March core update, but ended a little bit earlier. And of course, we have AI overviews, which we'll be speaking about today. Just really, I know we're going to dive into this in a second, but just looking at, bear with me. Here we go. Here we go. Really quick, a couple of big things that happened. Pure spam manual actions were sent out in March. This was Google sending manual actions to websites that were engaged in what they call pure spam. So, Ina, you mentioned before overuse of AI generated content, using a lot of AI tools to kind of mass auto generate a lot of low quality content. So a lot of this type of content you'll see here on the right. Google was actually sending pure spam manual actions to these sites, which removed their sites from search entirely. So you can see that here during the letter A. Scaled content abuse is another new change that Google made as part of this core update. So what they're saying here is if you have found an opportunity to scale a lot of low quality or mediocre quality or just content that Google considers to be unhelpful in a way where they're kind of mass creating lots and lots of pages really quickly, getting all those pages, or trying to get those pages indexed on Google, Google can now consider that a form of spam, which they called scaled content abuse, which can be remediated either by Google sending a pure spam manual action or taking algorithmic action against the website. And I'll pause there as we move on to the next question.
Yeah, and like one of the big things is, there's the type of content, but how are sites sourced in these, new AI overview answers? Like what are we looking at?
Yeah, definitely. So that's another really big change that I will dive into next, which is Google's announcement about AI overviews. I think everybody in the industry knows about this by now, but in case you don't, Google's been testing this over the last year, really. They announced it last year at Google I/O. This is a new way of Google displaying AI-generated answers to questions directly in Google search results. And essentially, what they're doing is they're taking a mix of top ranking results as well as actually results that don't rank anywhere in the top 50 or top 100 in some cases. And they're picking the most relevant passage and kind of using generative AI to generate a direct answer to the question in Google search results as well. So this was the big announcement that they made last week. Yeah, last week at Google I/O, May 16th. They said that they're now going to be rolling out a version of this publicly, availably to US searchers to start, but it's going to expand into other countries going forward. And to your question, Ina, how are they sourcing websites? Something that's been really surprising to me about these results is that it's not the answers that they're showing directly in the search results and the links that they're showing are not limited to only the top ranking results on Google. Myself and many others have seen many examples where Google actually cites websites and links from websites that are not ranking in the top 100, which there's pros and cons to that. But what's nice, generative AI overviews are showing links to sources. So some people argue that this isn't a big change from featured snippets, but you can see the layout is quite different than featured snippets in many cases. And you do have this kind of like carousel where you can filter through different options that Google links to. And Google also will include like a little caret that you can expand and see the different citations that they're referencing as part of generating that answer. One thing that's important to note, and one big, I think, piece of feedback that Google has received through Google Forums and through social media over the past week since this thing became public, is there's no option to opt out. With Bing, they have Copilot. They have a similar version of this that they've had for a while, and there's the ability to toggle it off. Google currently doesn't have that.
Yeah.
And
sorry to interject on this one, but like this is, by far like the users of Google, not just SEOs too, right? Like sort of one big question, and I don't know if we'll have an answer because I think time will tell. But users are facing that very significant change in their search experience. Essentially, Google saying, "Hey, we're moving your cheese. This is how you've been using Google. This is what it looks like, and now it's a uniquely different experience." And like I think as digital marketers, we spend a lot of time analyzing what's accurate, what's, correct. Yet, I think you've also have seen that a lot of these results have had some issues. Can you tell me
Yep.
a little bit about that?
Yeah, and to your point right here, the last bullet is the new web filter options. This was actually something new that Google announced as part of Google I/O last week, which is we finally have a filter directly in Google's organic results. So here you have, images, news, videos. There's a brand new one that's called web. You're not always going to see it. It's going to appear dynamically. In some cases, depending on the layout of your Google results, it might be sandwiched under another filter called more. So you have to click more and then click web, and then you can see classic 10 blue links the way that Google used to look in the late 90s if that's what you want to see. So that's nice for a lot of SEOs.
I mean,
Um,
who doesn't want to
yeah,
go like old school with their search results, right? You
yeah,
want the
exactly.
classics.
So yeah, I mean the AI overview is first of all it's right now it's largely showing for Google searchers who are logged in.
Mhm.
It's not showing for incognito just yet, but if you're logged into Google, even if you have Google Labs turned off, you're most likely going to be seeing AI generated overviews in the US right now.
Yeah, and I guess like one big question that, that related to this, and it's the user experience, it's also the accuracy of everything. And like, I guess my question here, and I think many people's questions are, do we think that this is going to, impact the user base or market share of Google? Because there's a lot of other search engines maybe that don't have the same market share, but definitely have a lot of strong opinions and different use cases than what Google has. So I
Yeah.
think it's a consideration. Might be jumping ahead a little bit, but I'm curious on your thoughts there.
Yeah, no, I mean, personally, I wasn't super surprised by some of the feedback that Google's getting just because I have been experimenting with this product for a year and I've seen a lot of its shortcomings. Now, AI is constantly improving. It's constantly, being trained with new information. That's kind of the whole point is when you roll this thing out, you have many more users that are giving it a lot more knowledge to train on and provide more feedback about when it gets things wrong. So I understand people are resistant to change. A lot of people are very scared of AI. There's a lot of people that it's a big transition. So I understand that we're a bit biased, especially in the SEO space, when we say we don't like this thing, turn it off. But something I was quite surprised to see is the level of pushback that they're getting, that Google's getting. This is just this screenshot here shows many different examples of how the media is kind of framing this thing. So a lot of it is like, can't turn it off. Want to be able to turn it off, want to make that web filter default, but you can't actually do that. And then if you actually look in Google's own search community, so let me find that real quick. Google has a search community where users are able to provide feedback about how they feel about different Google search products.
Mhm.
And I'll share an example of what that looks like this week and for the past couple of weeks. So, number one, Google specifically said on stage, we've found that with AI overviews, people use search more, they're more satisfied with their results. Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google, indicated that people are clicking around more. This thing kind of leads to higher click-through rates. But something that I thought was interesting, and I think many of us are finding interesting right now, is the number of people that are going to Google's support community to say, how do I turn this thing off? I don't like it. So again, maybe the super satisfied users aren't leaving comments anywhere, but it's not hard to find this type of feedback right now.
Yeah, and I think there's like that feedback from individuals, but like in terms of businesses and advertisers, how has this impacted different industries? Like, what has been the broader response?
Yeah, definitely. Well, you know, this the impact of AI overviews really does depend on your category and how your business makes money, how your website makes money, because and this is actually a trend that's consistent with what we're seeing with some of the core updates, which I'll talk about in a second. But if you're a website that primarily exists to serve information, to serve product reviews, if you monetize with display ads, affiliate links, you need traffic, you need page views, those types of things,
Mhm.
this presents a really big threat to your business in many ways because essentially what Google is doing and what the AI tools can do is they can take information from lots of different websites and kind of summarize it, regurgitate it, say the same thing that the sites are already saying, so the user gets what they need directly in the search results. They don't necessarily have, a reason to click through in those cases.
Mhm.
And just to show really quickly what that looks like, that's actually consistent with some of the trends that we're seeing actually as a result of Google's recent core updates, including the March core update. One of the biggest trends that I saw is that websites that do monetize in that way, websites that are, and this is not because of the monetization, but this is to say that the websites that rely on traffic, as a way of paying the bills.
Mhm.
So news publishers, media websites, product review websites, recipe bloggers, travel bloggers, like there's so many different sites that fit this criteria, are losing a lot of visibility. And we're seeing a lot of that being diverted back to sites like Amazon, YouTube. Definitely Reddit's been the biggest winner this whole year. So as a result of this, when a lot of these sites rank higher, like the e-commerce sites and the Reddits and YouTube, that can result in Google showing content from those results more frequently in the AI overviews.
It's a lot. That's a lot to think about too, right? And like I want to touch a little bit on Reddit because it's just been everywhere, right? Like we see that in results, we see that everywhere. And like on the other side of things, like there's Reddit advertising. And one interesting thing is that like anything that we do on the advertising side isn't going to show up on those results. Whereas like the content that goes in to Reddit posts that are showing up is what's appearing. Any thoughts on the Reddit side and how advertisers or how businesses should navigate that?
Yeah, absolutely. This has been probably, I would argue, the biggest change to SEO in the past year. And the reason I say that is because if you look here at Reddit's organic visibility growth, according to Systrix, Reddit is the red one here. So it's I try to like make analogies to kind of explain how big of a deal this is in the SEO space. If you look at the sheer number of what we call Systrix visibility index points, essentially,
Mhm.
Reddit has earned 1,000 of them. So think of this like the stock market of SEO, and how many points you have is indicative of how visible your website is in Google's organic search results. Reddit has absolutely skyrocketed in a way that we've never seen from any other website ever. Reddit is ranking for so many different types of queries now, and not only that, Reddit and Google announced a partnership in February, and that actually created a situation where now Google is allowing Reddit to be shown in new and different ways. So they might get, for example, this discussions and forums treatment directly in Google's results. Just today, an SEO named Brody Clark shared something showing that Reddit gets this new kind of mock-up appearance in the search results where a lot of the Reddit
Mhm.
answers are displayed directly in the results as well. So not only is their organic search traffic and rankings exponentially increasing over the last year, but you're seeing Reddit displayed in new and different ways. And you'll also see this treatment pretty frequently in the search results as well, where, the same, like in theory, this is one organic listing, right? But it actually has 6 to 8 unique URLs that are included here. And the last thing I'll say about it, just because Reddit and Amazon have been two of the biggest winners, we have a new article about this on the Amsive blog, actually two new articles. So one is all about Reddit's growth, one is about the March core update, but something that we show in these posts is that Reddit and Amazon are ranking in top positions, in this case, number one positions for a lot of these best product queries, best portable air conditioner, best weed killer. We used to see a lot of these product review sites ranking in top positions for these queries over the last year or so, and that really switched to Reddit and Amazon recently. So I think this has been the biggest sea change. As far as how marketers can respond, it's tricky, right? Because Google, or rather Reddit, they really locked down on people manipulating Reddit for marketing purposes. That's been true forever. That's probably one of the reasons why Google is rewarding Reddit so much, is
Yeah.
because in theory it has these authentic voices. People are not trying to sell things. But of course, SEOs being SEOs, spammers being spammers, everyone's looking for an opportunity right now to spam Reddit. There's people that are doing it with some success, but I know for a fact Reddit is trying to shut it down. So you have to be very careful.
Mm. Yeah, so I mean, we've talked about a lot, right? About how search is evolving, how it has evolved with AI. So let's move on to, given all the fact that there's been so much change, as marketers, what can we do to compete in organic search?
Yeah, it's becoming, honestly, it's becoming trickier and trickier, I would say. We're facing a lot of new challenges in the organic search space. I would say AI overviews being the biggest, most obvious one, but these ranking changes are a big challenge as well for many types of websites. I've been surprised with the level that publisher, news, media, affiliate websites have lost visibility over the last year. Now, search is dynamic, nothing's permanent. Things ebb and flow over time. Google responds to what its users are looking for, what its users want. So arguably that's why we saw a lot of these changes over the last couple of years, is because Google's giving searchers what they want. Searchers want Reddit. They want to go directly to the source. They want to go to the e-commerce website. So, one piece of good news if you're not one of those types of sites that makes money off display ads and affiliate links, there's tons of SEO opportunity right now. I mean, I think something that's been very surprising to me in the last, even just the last couple of weeks, after May 5th, here's some pretty big brands in the kind of automotive space. So these sites are skyrocketing in the last few days. Big brand sites, Honda, GM, Ford, Toyota, but it's not just them. There's a lot of sites in a lot of different categories that are starting to see pretty significant growth in the past couple of weeks. Something that's been very surprising to me, very interesting to me, is the way that different types of content on different websites is being rewarded from an SEO perspective. So, it wasn't just Reddit that was the only forum that was rewarded with some of Google's algorithmic changes. Sites that have user-generated content, sites that have forums, sites that have communities, sites that have blogs are seeing really big increases as well. So looking at Microsoft, these are different subdomains on Microsoft. So you'll get, support.microsoft, learn.microsoft, apps.microsoft, answers.microsoft is essentially a Q&A, a forum within the Microsoft community. And look at how that's grown in the past several months as well with SEO visibility. That's the brown one. And then Adobe, another website, stock.adobe.com. Those are Adobe stock photos. And look at how that's really carrying the visibility of the website recently too. So diversifying the type of content and kind of expanding into different content formats, plus really encouraging your users to leave a lot of user-generated content seems to be the direction that Google's going.
Yeah, so it sounds like, if you're going to want to try to influence AI overviews or just rankings, UGC, what are some other strategies to scale SEO efforts? Not just to like get more visibility, but also I think earlier when I was doing the introduction, I mentioned that, one of the benefits of AI is it allows us to do some things that were massively tedious in the past, a lot more quickly. But, what does that mean with us being able to use that AI responsibly?
Yeah, that's a really important question because the landscape has changed in the SEO space as far as what is an advisable approach to using generative AI. Google put out an article in February 2023 advising site owners on their stance on AI content. And to sum it up, I encourage people to read that article very closely because when I read it, I kind of understood what they were talking about, but I do think a lot of people read it and said, Google's fine with AI content, which is not 100% true.
Yeah.
Google's fine with AI content if it doesn't fall into what they call one of its spam policies, which is mass auto-generating content without human oversight, without editing, without making it really high quality, and kind of doing that specifically for the benefit of SEO. And a lot of people did that over the last year or, recently. A lot of people got away with it because Google was still designing algorithms, penalties, new systems to kind of process this new change. But as it stands right now, I would say, using that approach where you're mass auto-generating content using AI tools without any editing, is very dangerous for SEO. Google's made its stance very clear. So I'm not saying AI is bad. I think there's a million amazing use cases for it, but definitely that approach of just using it to scale content with little oversight is something that Google absolutely cracked down on, and the other search engines as well recently.
So, given that, like, again, use responsibly, take precaution, it sounds like there's still some gray areas, within the Google space around that. And, policy does keep on changing. So I'm sure that's going to evolve over time. But, given that, but what can marketers do now to drive that search visibility?
Yeah, I think, SEO is getting more and more challenging. You have to be more and more creative. You have to think about what are ways that I can drive a lot of value for my customers over time in a way that's very thoughtful. It's producing what we call like helpful, high quality content. So I just found this example recently because the BBC is surging in Google's organic results, and I wanted to drill down into why that's happening. of course, there's a million reasons why these types of things happen, but something that I found that was very interesting is this part of the BBC website called BBC Bite Size. And I think this is really interesting because obviously BBC is a news website, it's a publisher website. Many publisher websites have lost visibility lately, but BBC has been able to capture a lot of visibility with this bite size section. And what this essentially is, it's like, think of it as a combination of like Wikipedia on a very small scale, or combined with like an educational resource for students and for teachers. So
Hmm.
what BBC will do is they'll say, there's an article on the BBC website about there's a ton of rain in London right now. It's been super rainy. And then they'll have a little call to action that says, learn more about the rain with BBC Bite Size. And then you go to BBC Bite Size and it's essentially a Wikipedia page, but
Hmm.
with original BBC videos, quizzes, students doing, I don't know, arts and crafts project about it, whatever it is that's original content that's multimodal. It's very thoughtful. It's very resource intensive to build these pages, but they're evergreen. And what that means is that throughout the year, when people are looking for information about the rain, BBC is not just a news publisher. Now it's a website that has these evergreen resources that add a lot of value for Google searchers and for searchers everywhere.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I know we've had some questions, some comments, and don't worry, everybody, keep on popping the questions into chat. We'll make sure we'll get to as many as we can at the tail end or during conversation. Like I know you mentioned that there's a news site. Like there's some questions around, the impact of UGC user contributions on news sites. Comments on news sites have been diminishing. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, comments are, it's tricky because I don't want to say go release your comments into the wild and allow search engines to crawl all of them because what could possibly go wrong, right? Like many things can go wrong with that approach. Many things can and have gone wrong with that approach. So, different publishers have different systems of how they allow for comments. What does the moderation look like? What's indexable to search engines? What's viewable to search engines? Like you can technically set this up in a way where you can have comments for users where that users can read, but search engines can't see any of it. And a reason people might do that is because when you have comments that are, let's say, profane, have personal information, they have dangerous information. Google, in theory, and search engines that they can render and read that content, that can count against the overall page quality. So you have to be really careful. But that being said, Google's making it very clear that they like user-generated content. So I think, if you're a recipe site, people love reading the comments. Like people that love cooking food, they read the comments. They want to hear what other people experienced when they were cooking that recipe. So search engines know the value of that content. So I would think about moderation, think about what comments make sense for your business, respond to the people leaving comments as much as you can, and
Mhm.
set that up in a way that it can potentially benefit your SEO.
Yeah, and I guess like on the other side of it, because there's news sites, but that's a small percentage of the overall industry, right? And the types of advertisers and clients that we see. It might be a little bit more challenging for, B2B clients, for professional services to leverage the same type of UGC, or make the same sort of pushes with it. Like, what are your thoughts on that for like bringing it down to B2B to maybe like retail to areas where, they might not have access or immediate access to such UGC.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot of more like locked down, regulated categories
Mhm.
where you wouldn't want to leverage comments because there's all kinds of compliance or regulatory issues or whatever
Yeah.
the case may be, just a few.
Mhm.
Yeah, but the thing is, Google is still really focused, and I think Google is a proxy for searchers, right? People on the internet are still really interested in seeing firsthand experience.
Mhm.
So, there's many ways that B2B sites, brand sites can engage with customers to produce or to kind of incorporate that feedback back into its content strategy. One random example that comes to mind is Healthline. So when Google started to focus more on experience-driven content, Healthline started to incorporate real contributions from people who have that medical condition, for example, or people who are experts in that medical condition to have a quote, somewhere in the article about what they have to say about it. And when you think about this from a search engine perspective, what you're doing is you're adding something new and original that's a new addition to the conversation that they haven't seen across other sites before. We call it information gain, but essentially it's saying something that people haven't said before. So if you're a B2B site, of course you can use, chat logs that your customer service team has had with its customers, or phone calls that people have called in and said certain things. You can interview your audience, or just collecting that first person experience driven feedback and incorporating that into your content strategy.
And not to derail with the dark side of things, which is paid media, but as much of that first party data that you can collect, including any sort of like email addresses as part of that, is really, really helpful, because then you can leverage that in your advertising. But just from like that UGC perspective, like that's a great tip. I do want to spend a little bit more time on a couple of different industries, because I know we have such a we have a whole bunch of folks here across all types of verticals. So you mentioned earlier, there's highly regulated industries that, there's so many more considerations for. Like, I think one that, there's really two that I think between insurance and healthcare that, are by far the most regulated, along with the financial sector. Like, any thoughts on, how you can approach that for those industries?
Yeah, I mean, so listen, like not every category needs to focus on user-generated content. There's different ranking systems and different considerations that search engines use depending on the category. So I would say we have this notion in the SEO space, something that Google's talked about for a long time, of EEAT, experience, expertise, authority, and trust. What we've been talking about on this webinar to date is experience, right? And Google will literally say different types of queries require different types of results. You might need experience-driven results. If someone's typing, what does it feel like to have, I don't know, this skin condition? They might want to hear someone that has the skin condition chiming in with firsthand experience. But for things like insurance, or more regulated categories, they're not necessarily, in some cases, searchers are looking for like firsthand accounts of people that have shared, people that have tried different insurance companies and have reviews. Like that's actually when they're actually going to show more sites like Reddit and that type of thing. But Google has algorithms to elevate the most trusted, the most authoritative companies and resources for certain types of queries. So when you get into things like insurance, when you get into finance, when you get into like more sensitive topics that actually have an impact on people's livelihoods, their safety, their financial security, Google is going to be very focused on that EEAT concept. So that goes back to the basics of SEO. You want to make sure you're working with experts to produce that content. You want to make sure you're citing the latest regulations in your space, listing authors, being very transparent about how you create content, showing your users all the signals that you're a trusted brand. All of that really adds up for SEO performance.
Oh, thank you. Because I know we just covered a whole bunch of industries with like very good practical sort of applications of, how to work within, AI, as well as, where SEO is going. But I think one huge topic of conversation is, there's the action that you take to get that visibility, or to use AI responsibly, whatever it is that we do. Ultimately, it comes down to the ability to measure that and be able to track that organic search visibility. So how has that changed? And, how are we able to measure that organic search visibility now?
Yeah, a lot is changing right now. There's a lot of big unknowns, especially as it relates to AI overviews. So, as far as tracking organic rankings, traffic, clicks, there's all kinds of tools, especially here at Amsive. I think we use like 30 or 40 tools on the SEO team to track performance. Google Search Console is the source of truth at this point for all things Google organic, and of course GA4. But with AI overviews, we have a lot of new challenges because, and I've literally just been trying to figure this out for the last few days, and people that work in the SEO tool industry as well. Google is currently, it seems like they're largely, maybe 99%, only serving AI overviews to logged in Google searchers.
Mm-hmm.
So those are personalized by definition because you're logged into your Gmail account, you're seeing that personal experience. SEO ranking tools, third-party ranking tools, are not supposed to be using, I mean, there's a whole question of what they're supposed to be doing in the first place, but they don't generally track personalized search results. They don't log into a Gmail account. Now, some of them are starting to do this now because they need to get that AI overview data. But as it stands, logged out, depersonalized organic search results cannot be, they cannot, you're not going to see AI overviews in their tracking. So right now, the SEO industry is in a big holding pattern because we don't have AI overview data filtered out in Search Console. Google hasn't given us any indication that they're 100% going to do that. They've said some things like yeah, we'll think about it one day, but they haven't
Uh,
told us when. And then just the last thing I want to add is there's a really amazing new tool by Tomek Rudsky from Onely that I just started working on today, just started experimenting with today. It's awesome. It's the coolest thing I found so far as tracking AI overview data. You can actually put a handful of keywords into this tool, and it will tell you who is ranking in the AI overviews. It'll tell you which sites are ranking only as the AI overview, which sites are ranking only in the search results. It'll show you a snippet of the actual result itself, and then URLs to where the overview was sourced from. So you better believe I will be living in this tool for the next few months.
I can't wait until the rest of the SEO team gets their hands on it.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Really. They get very excited about tools, which I love. Um, so I know we've talked a lot about measurement, about how it impacts different industries, but let's move on a little bit because I think there's questions about what the future looks like, right? There's been the shift in the Google search landscape. And I think this is probably where I'm going to opine about AI overview in a little bit, because I think we all got hit with some surprising news yesterday too on the media side. Before we do that, I'd love to hear from you, what you think SEO looks like in the future, like not just for Google, but also considering like other platforms outside of Google where marketers should be looking to drive discovery.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, one, we always, myself included, we use Google synonymously with searching, right? But there's a lot of different ways that people search, obviously. So
Mhm.
YouTube is proving to be a really great resource for all kinds of content creators, all types of brands. YouTube is actually one of the biggest winners of SEO visibility on Google recently, which just means that they're showing more and more YouTube results directly in the organic search results. And I think for a lot of companies that have been negatively impacted by recent algorithm updates, a lot of them are shifting to YouTube. So, travel bloggers, recipe bloggers, there's a lot of people that could benefit from, the fact that so many people are spending so much time on YouTube. Google also uses that video content in different ways and displays it in different ways. So Google has obviously the video thumbnail, there's the short video filter directly on Google. And of course, TikTok relates to this very closely as well. So what's nice about YouTube is if you're doing something for YouTube, you can kind of do something for
Yeah.
YouTube and TikTok at the same time. Obviously, there's a whole contingency
Different
of users.
content.
Right. They're
Yeah,
spending
yeah.
all their time on TikTok. So diversifying is very important. I think if we've learned anything in the last year, it's that getting traffic from different places is very important. And then, Amazon as well. I know we've worked a bit
Yeah.
together on doing some Amazon search marketing as well.
Sure.
But
We've
yeah,
probably worked on all of the
diversification.
things.
We've
Yeah.
worked on all the things. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, so that's different platforms, and I think like it sounds like in so many ways, because this happened to the digital media advertising space, right? Particularly in social, like, years ago we just had, Google search, and then we eventually got shopping, and then we had Bing advertising, and eventually Facebook came around. So like there was this massive segmentation once like Facebook came around, Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat, where there was just this fragmentation just within this one space. And it sounds like there's a little bit more of that happening with the SEO side, where there has to be focus on diversifying some of that those efforts too into
Yep.
other areas.
Yes, yes. I think given the changes that have happened algorithmically, given, for example, the rise of Reddit that's absorbing so much visibility across so many different categories, there's not much you can do about that. I think some people would argue, yeah, you can go onto Reddit and chime into the discussion and try to add links and do all this stuff, but I don't know how sustainable of a strategy that is. So I think there are some big threats right now to people that do SEO day in and day out. So diversification is very important. And don't sleep on Bing. I think Bing is seeing a little uptick in market share. I know a lot of people are saying they're switching to Bing, they're switching to DuckDuckGo. Um, it'll be interesting. There's also a lot of unknowns in the industry, right? We don't know what's going to happen with the DOJ case. That could be the biggest change we've ever seen to our entire industry, right? We don't know what's going to happen with this big kind of battle between OpenAI and Google. We don't know what's going to happen with these Reddit partnerships. Like, there's just so many big unknowns right now that I think, yeah, what's happening today might not be what's happening in 2 or 3 months. So we'll see.
I mean, I think that's just like such a common theme though, like in this space right now. It almost feels like just over the last couple of years, like the frequency of algorithm updates, the frequency of this type of change or disruption has just scaled up quite dramatically. So, I think, I know you are probably like at the forefront of just like it, but this seems like, within SEO, as it always has been within paid too, it's just important to keep your ear to the ground, like stay on top of those changes are, but generally speaking, focus on those best practices that I know we talked a little bit about earlier, regardless of what that evolving landscape looks like, right?
Yeah, I think one thing we're definitely learning loud and clear in the SEO space, and this is not necessarily new, but I would say that Google has become a bit more aggressive with cracking down on um, SEO exploits, right? SEO opportunities that are too good to be true. We've learned a lot about where Google stands in the last few months, whether it's through algorithm updates where Google has really cracked down on lots of sites. September helpful content update, thousands of sites lost 90% of their traffic and visibility and haven't seen any of it come back.
Mm-hmm.
Thousands and thousands of websites. That was a very big, I think it was a very big statement from Google.
Mm-hmm.
We have 3 new types of spam policies from Google that we haven't had before that are affecting all types of websites. It's not just small publishers, it's all types of websites. The May 5th update that happened on Google, the site reputation abuse spam policy enforcement, has been huge for many, many big publishers. So Google is making its stance about spam tactics, many of which were successful SEO strategies for years. They're making their stance very clear. And you have to stay ahead of what Google is saying not to do, because here's how SEO works. Sometimes you'll get away with the thing that goes against their spam policies for 3 months and you'll say, oh, it's working. Let's double down on it, right? And then it just took Google a little bit of time to catch up to you. They
Yeah.
catch up to you, you lose everything. And it's very hard to recover. So you have to be very careful.
Yeah. And I know we're talking about a lot of updates and I get a chance to opine on something that actually affects us both now, or at least as of yesterday, as it turns out. So yesterday during Google Marketing Live, Google announced that they were going to be introducing ads into AI Overview. So what I do know about it, and we've had some chats with Google over, I guess, the last less than 24 hours, trying to get more information, but really like, here's what we do know, is that it's coming in the second half of 2024, the exact date to be determined. There have been some posts, articles indicating that, it's already out there in the ether. But, what we do know is second half of 2024, it will be launching in the US only on mobile and as an experiment in English only, and it's only going to affect search and shopping ads. I would add one thing there is that and this is to be determined. One thing on the shopping ads is that it's a little bit vague because you can still serve those types of ad units through Performance Max campaigns too. So now not only is there AI overview, which was I think largely an SEO consideration, there's the added element of introducing ads into it. And then the second element, I think paid media has like been somewhat shielded from some of these like massive changes for a bit. But one big concern, or at least an interesting challenge is, like what's going to happen with the inventory that's available for, paid media ads if they're serving, above or below, particularly on mobile, like above or below the fold, especially with, AI overview. So that's going to be interesting to see. I'll opine for like 2 seconds on that. I think ultimately at the end of the day, like Google is still a business. A lot of their revenue comes in from their advertising dollars. And it's a lot to be seen as to what happens, but like, is it going to result in decreased inventory? Probably not. I don't think they'd allow for that to happen, but I do envision that there may be scenarios where like we have our CPC costs start inflating, particularly on mobile, because there's just more competition to be above the fold. And then I got this from an SEO site, Lily, so you should be very proud of me. But there was a study done around like where ads are serving alongside AI overview. And it's interesting because this comes down to like the number of tokens. So I think like the simplest way that we can approach it is, the more number of tokens, like let's say 3+ tokens, on the higher intent of the search query, it's more likely that AI overview shows up and shows up above ads. But if there's like 3 or less tokens, it's less likely that AI overview shows up and shows up above. So I think it's a combination of, how many actual words there are in your query and how high intent that query is. But it sounds like that there's going to be competition in that space and we're going to be combining, I guess, the work that's happening on the SEO side to try to influence those results or try to at least rank in those results, along with competing with paid media ads showing up in the same space. So even more room for collaboration between SEO and the paid media side. So I think I'm excited about it. I'm curious to see what happens, but looks like SEO paid media teams. Time to talk a little bit more about
Yeah.
that as it rolls out.
Yeah, those are all really great points. I think it's important to remember, and this is one thing that's been a bit of a glimmer of hope for us in the SEO space. Like you said, Google needs people to click on ads, right? So if this AI overview results in nobody clicking on anything ever, it's not in Google's best interest either.
Yeah.
So I think you made some really great points about like when it's going to show, when it's not going to show. But
Mhm.
the fact that Google still needs people to click on things is somewhat promising for both, of
Mhm.
course, search marketing, but SEO as well.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we're all like keeping a keen eye on it, right? Like on what the trends are, like what happens to, at least on our side on paid media, like what happens to click-through rate, CPCs, how we're serving, and what impact that has on, our search and shopping channels. And I'm sure it's, very much the same because we spent quite a bit of time talking about, measurement and SEO or identifying ways to get that. And you spoke of, a new tool that can help assist with that too. So I think it's not nearly as, black box as it's a little bit more black box than we would like for it to be, but I think everybody here is, putting in their best effort to, assess what the impact is and be able to like produce and provide strategies. I know on both our teams to address this and make sure that we're like doing right by clients we service.
Absolutely.
All right, my last question or semi-last question before we get into answering some of the additional questions that we've seen. So what kind of results should marketers be looking for out of their SEO programs and partners?
Well, that all depends on what the KPIs are. I will say it's becoming more and more competitive. The days of taking shortcuts are behind us. I really think that's true. I think there's always going to be opportunities to spam search engines and get away with certain things, but it seems like you're going to have to put more resources, more time, more energy, more focus into long-term sustainable SEO approaches. And slow and steady wins the race in SEO. People never want to hear it, but you know, um, SEO is a thing that compounds over time when done correctly. SEO is the thing where you don't, you know, earn a bunch of traffic and visibility and rankings and revenue and lose it all overnight. SEO that's done well should hopefully avoid those types of exercises. So understanding that landscape and understanding the nature of how things work and looking at case studies from sites that have really succeeded with SEO over time, where they've seen that kind of slow, consistent growth over time because they're kind of putting in the work. They're not taking big risks, not trying to spam Google or anything like this. That's when you can really see the results of your efforts kick in and might take, in some cases, years to see that type of success.
Oh, see, I love that. See, that's like it takes time and, it takes the diligent work to get there. Uh, again, very different from like media side, where I don't think there's like as much patience for some of those things, but I know it's something that we both deal on both sides. So really happy
Yeah.
to perspective. So I'm gonna wrap up. I mean, like I'd like to, so I learned a lot, like so much every day. I wish we could talk about this all day, every day together, but um this has been great. And I think like some of the main things I heard from you is that, as content really explodes with, AI assisted content creation and personalization. And of course, as Google tries to combat that AI created low quality content, it is becoming harder and harder for brands to stand out. I know you gave some really great points and recommendations on how to address that. I think the second thing I heard was that AI should support content marketing efforts, not drive them. So really build on like that authentic expert perspective and, experience first. So like everybody who loves EAT, That's for you all. And I'd say the third is that, a good long-term SEO strategy should really rely on a holistic full funnel approach to build that awareness and word of mouth. And, because the marketplace is evolving so much, like so much of that goes hand in hand with, your digital media, your social and your influencer teams. Like, I think like my favorite thing to always say is like, ultimately, whether we're doing SEO or paid media or PR or, email marketing, direct mail, ultimately, we're trying to drive traffic to a site in, different methods, but ultimately, like, we have same goals. And so that's why, you have me on here, talking with Lily, and, really finding like that balance between, both worlds or many of the different worlds. So, that's my piece. Lily, any last thoughts before we jump into the Q&A?
No, not really. Just, I think a lot of people are quite panicked right now, but it's important to remember again, this thing is developing in real time and it's
Mhm.
going to look a little different every day. If we don't have, for example, the right tooling today, we might have that tooling in 2 or 3 weeks. So everybody, as much as possible, be patient, play the long game, try to do things right, don't panic. And it's an exciting time, very exciting time.
All right. Thank you so much, Lily. This has been amazing. Now we're going to jump into a little bit of Q&A. So I'll get started with a couple of questions. So we had questions around Amazon. Please talk a little bit more about using Amazon more heavily in diversification.
Yeah, I feel like we can both answer that one. I mean, obviously you need to be selling something, right? It's not really available, maybe.
Depends. I mean, I can add really quickly, like Amazon, it's not just, buying products on Amazon, or directly on Amazon. Amazon also has a DSP, which, for example, if you are not, a retailer or selling product on site, or, you just want to target an audience, they do have like really strong purchaser audiences that we can target. So you don't necessarily have to just drive traffic to Amazon.
Hmm.
So, that's one scenario on the media side. But again, there's also things you can do with if you are on Amazon and also have your own, .com site. There's ways to be able to get both to work and also be able to, like use some of that great Amazon tracking and be able to, measure a bit more successfully than just like not having visibility there. But I'll
Yeah.
stop there.
No,
And
great points. Those are
yeah.
great points. I think, traditionally your team and our team have worked together on certain Amazon projects where people are wanting to do a version of SEO or SEM for Amazon specifically. So it's a different search engine. And obviously the more prominently you rank, the better you're going to do and the more you're going to sell there. So I think
Mhm.
thinking about that as a different way of kind of presenting your products, and the search engine works very differently on Amazon than it does on
Mhm.
Google. It feels a bit like Google from 10 or 15 years ago. So just that's always an opportunity if you're
Yeah.
selling products.
Yeah, and unlike using paid ads, like essentially on Amazon, essentially like it's contingent on the content that you have on your Amazon product pages, right? Like it has to be great, it has to be spotless in order for you to have the most success. Like it really does impact that. So, I often say like get the pages right, get the products right, and then start pushing advertising more aggressively. Like I think those are two strategies that have to go hand in hand.
Yeah. And just one last thing to add, because obviously there's Amazon affiliate links.
Mhm.
That's what a lot of content publishers have used forever to monetize. And that is, unfortunately, I would say one of the biggest areas where Google appears to be, very generally speaking here, reducing visibility of a lot of sites that rely on that type of monetization. So if you're thinking of getting into a niche where you're just going to post 10bestbarbecuegrills.com and just link to Amazon, it's becoming harder and harder to compete with that type of content without doing something completely different from other affiliate sites.
Mhm. Oh, all right. Next question. What is the POV around Google cannibalizing itself by prioritizing AI at the top of SERP instead of paid ads, which would seem to go against their self-interests? Mind if I take like 10 seconds
Please.
for that one? Because that's been my favorite topic of discussion and probably will be something like most media teams are talking quite a bit about right now. So for those of you that are like want to, let's do like a 10-second deep dive into paid search. So Google's really been pushing their modern search structure over the last couple of years, which is really all about consolidation, automation, and using their AI tools to really drive scale. I know paid media people tend to have, it's the same thing with any sort of change, may not always like having to consolidate, and it doesn't mean that you have to. But what I would say is this push with putting AI overview and ads into it, I think goes so well hand in hand with what they've been pushing on the paid media side for that consolidation piece. Because again, I think we're realizing that longer tail queries are going to more likely show the AI overview, right? And we've been told on the paid media side to use broad match keywords, smaller token keywords, like things that, instead of having long tail searches or as many keywords in our campaigns as possible to catch every variant, broad match is going to capture it all. So I think this goes quite well hand in hand, at least from like the Google perspective of, using AI overview and putting ads there. So I don't know if it's necessarily cannibalizing it. I think it's, too soon to tell because it's not enough information. But I think there might be like increases in CPCs and impact on CTRs. But, we have to think about the fact that most advertisers are not going to, shift away from Google. Any
Yeah.
thoughts on the SEO side and the cannibalization?
I mean, I think a lot of people are a bit up in arms about the fact that Google is displaying AI generated content while devaluing lots of AI generated content algorithmically. So it's been a bit ironic in our industry. And the same issues that people have with AI generated content from a quality perspective, we're seeing some of those issues in Google's AI generated results currently. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out over time. I imagine, of course, the results, the quality of the results will improve over time. But yeah, it's definitely a bit ironic.
All right, well, fun. All right, last question, and then we're gonna close out. This one might be a short one or a long one, we don't know. Will AI kill SEO? That's so loaded. That's such a loaded question.
I don't think so. I think that a lot of us say this in the industry, as long as people search for things, there will be people that need to optimize the things being found, right? So,
Mhm.
I mean, maybe at some point in the distant future, AI won't need any, human insight to create answers or whatever AI does. But I think we will have a version of SEO for a long time, but probably, to be honest, fewer SEO opportunities than we've had before.
Mhm. Cool. Well, thank you for that, Lily. All right. So, just wanted to say thank you, Lily, for this wonderful conversation and joining us today. Thank you to everybody who joined the webinar, and for all of your great questions. We'll make the recordings available to all the registrants afterwards. Follow Lily Ray NYC on X for her take on the latest in SEO or LinkedIn. Please follow at Amsive on LinkedIn for more full funnel performance marketing insights. You can also follow me on LinkedIn. I'm Ina Zeyger, and we'd love to know how you liked your content. There's going to be a short survey that will follow this webinar. Please share your thoughts with us, and we cannot wait to see you all next time. Thank you all so much for joining.
Thank you.
Thanks all.